Management Skills Training Program, Video 3-2. This video is the second half of Part 3. In this video, we'll learn about communication with your subordinates. In order to achieve the mission, a high level of communication skills is required for managers. Whether or not a manager can transfer organizational policies and strategies to subordinates, and whether or not a manager can establish the workshop with high morale are definitely up to the manager's communication skills. It's safe to say that the success of management primarily depends upon communication. The diagram at the bottom of the slide shows that good communication leads to mutual understanding, and the mutual understanding leads to mutual trust. Finally, the mutual trust leads to effective job operations. I think it's worth mentioning the concept of counseling mind here. Let's look at the definitions of counseling and counseling mind. Counseling is to create human relationships to promote behavioral change through verbal and non-verbal communication. And counseling mind is the approach to create positive relationships with subordinates and support their capacity development, utilizing the concept and the tools of counseling. So you need to communicate with your subordinates, always bearing this concept in mind. Let me ask you, what constitutes a good manager? There are many definitions, of course, but let me put it this way here. A good manager is a manager whose subordinate can achieve the objectives without the presence of the manager. To realize this, a manager needs to commit to and support the capacity development of subordinates. And the manager needs to commit and support the accomplishment of the objectives of subordinate. The key points here are, once again, treat subordinates equally and do not criticize, but praise, praise, and praise. Let me show you an example of how to praise. First, you raise a specific topic like this. I have something to talk to you about the X project. And if you want to praise the overall impression of what your subordinate has done, you say, it is very good for something. And if you hear about good activities or behaviors of your subordinate, you say, especially your action on X was very impressive and unique, blah, blah, blah. And if you hear good comments from others on your subordinates and want to express your personal feelings or impacts on others, you say, thanks to your patient effort, something, blah, blah, blah. Simply put, show your appreciation, expectation, and encouragement to your subordinate whenever possible. For example, thank you very much for something. I expect a good result for the next project, etc. You may have heard about coaching. This idea is very useful for communication. Coaching is to bring out the potential of subordinates based on equal partnership. In coaching, a manager lets subordinates think and act by themselves. As a result, the subordinate will feel satisfied and become more positive in achieving objectives. In coaching, the focus is on how for the future. Through coaching, the future objective is made clear and an action plan can be created. In coaching, you encourage the subordinates to solve the solution by themselves. The coaching is based on the belief that a subordinate has limitless possibility. What is the difference between teaching and coaching? Teaching is to instruct how to do daily operations. But coaching is to develop one's capacity so that one can think of their problem by themselves and take action. Also, coaching includes trying to enhance good and unique aspects of their character. And this graph shows the positioning for teaching and coaching. From the standpoint of activities, I can say teaching is mainly performed by talking and instructing. On the other hand, coaching is performed mainly by listening and asking questions to subordinates. And from the standpoint of time, coaching focuses on future solutions rather than past issues. This double circle shows the focal point of coaching. Let me talk a little bit about active listening. Active listening is a communication skill necessary for coaching. It aims to extract answers from subordinates by setting a cordial atmosphere where they can feel relaxed to talk. In active listening, stand on the side of the subordinates and try to understand the background of their say. And focus on acceptance and encourage them to speak more by asking questions at appropriate timings. By active listening, you can extract much more information from subordinates. We have learned some similar concepts. Let me organize them here. This slide shows the relationship between coaching, counseling mind, and active listening. A boss conducts coaching for subordinates with counseling mind. And active listening is one of the methods used in coaching. There are some points to consider for active listening. Number one, question. There are two types of questions, open questions and closed questions. Closed questions are those which can be answered by a simple yes or no. For example, the question, have you finished the job already? Can be answered by yes, I have, or no, I haven't. On the other hand, open questions require more thought and more than a simple one-word answer. For example, the question, what do you think is the best way to reduce our production cost? Encourages the subordinate to think deeply and requires more than one-word answers. Closed questions are often used when you want to derive a conclusion. On the other hand, open questions are often used when you want your subordinates to think freely and creatively. It is important to use these types of questions depending on your purposes or occasions. Number 2, acceptance. It is also important to give affirmative responses, such as, yes, I think so, or that's a good idea, and nod approvingly. Number 3, repeating. To repeat what your subordinate says is effective because it shows that you are attentively listening to them. Number 4, clarification. It is important to guess what your subordinate wants to say and prepare to make a positive reply. And add some points to expand the conversation when you feel it's effective. Number 5, supporting. Acknowledge what the subordinate says and consent to it. You should be attentive. Look at your subordinate, keeping eye contact, and concentrate on listening. Sometimes you need to avoid giving your frank opinions because it might make them feel disappointed. As a result, they would stop speaking frankly and the conversation would end. So, how could we ask subordinates questions to encourage them to speak their mind? I'll show you some hints here. Questions that subordinates can answer easily. More specifically, they are questions on the facts which occurred recently, or questions that subordinates want to answer, such as, how are things going these days? And questions that change the point of view. How about your clients? What do they expect you to do? Or how about your new boss? What do you think about his policy? Questions that encourage your subordinates, such as, why don't you try it? I'm sure you can do it. Or how can you utilize your capacity? And questions that help your subordinates imagine the future status or positive solutions, such as, what do you think your ideal future status would be? What do you think is the best way to improve it? Let me talk a little bit about MCW viewpoints. You can use the MCW viewpoints when you want to promote your subordinates' motivation. If you feel one of your subordinates is lacking in motivation, you need to ask yourself the following questions. The first question is, do they understand the importance of the job? Let me call this type of question a must question because they must do the job since it is essential to the team. And the second question is, do they have enough ability to accomplish the job? I'll call this type of question a can question because it relates to their ability or capacity. And the third question is the job really something they wish to do? I'll call this type of question a will question because it asks their actual will. These three circles show the ideal status of motivation where all the three questions are answered by yes. Let me divide non-motivated people into three types using the MCW viewpoints. Type A, the subordinate understands the importance of the job and has enough ability to do it. However, they are not willing to do that job. Type B, the job is what the subordinate wishes to do, and the organization expects them to achieve the job successfully. However, they do not have enough ability to do it. Type C, the subordinate wishes to do a particular job, and they have enough ability to do it. However, the organization or team does not expect them to do the job or do not have a position for the job. You might have noticed that there should have been type D. That's right. But let me skip the explanation because you can guess it easily. At the end of this video, I'll give you 5 quizzes as usual. Some of the answers may not be written in those slides, but you can find some of them in what I've said only verbally. To finish up part 3, let's challenge the assignments. Assignment 3-1 is about your subordinate motivation. Let me read the direction. Select one of the subordinates in your team who falls on type A, B, C, etc., and describe his or her job performance or motivation from the MCW viewpoints. Please note that do not use the person's real name. Use a fake name or Mr. A or Mr. B instead. I already wrote a sample answer for your reference, but you don't have to follow this. Please write freely. This assignment is about yourself. Let me read the direction. As the manager of the subordinate selected in assignment 3-1, now you wish to improve his or her job performance or motivation, etc. To that end, what kind of skills, knowledge, or methods, such as the topics we explained in part 3, do you want to acquire and why? Describe concretely as possible. Assignment 3-3. This assignment is about your plan to communicate with the subordinate. Let me read the direction. Suppose that you have acquired the necessary abilities you described in assignment 3-2. Now you want to do something to improve the subordinate's current situation. Describe your plan to improve his or her current situation concretely as possible. Okay, this is the end of part 3. Don't forget to submit your answer sheet by the deadline. See you next time.